So we begin on page 93, Genesis 25:19. Genesis 25:19. The Parsha of Toldos, which we're reading this week, really is almost entirely focused on one theme, and that is the rivalry between Yaakov and Esau, Jacob and Esau. There is one departure from that, and that is the journey of Isaac to Gerar and his experience there, and concluding with the digging of wells and finally a covenant with the king of Gerar. Okay, that's and I want to tie these two together. So let's start out with the opening story. Rivka is pregnant. She has difficulty. The children struggle within her. So she has difficulty in carrying the children. And she doesn't know that she has twins. And she goes to seek out God. And the oracle tells her that there are two nations in your womb. Two peoples will extend from there. One people will struggle against the other. The elder shall serve the younger. So this is part number one. Part number two is the relationship that the two boys, the twins, have with their parents. And it seems at first that there is conflict in the relationship between Yitzchak and Rivka. Yitzchak loving Esau, and Yaakov and Rivka loving Yaakov. How do we understand why Yitzchak loves Esau? The Torah tells us, verse 28, Yitzchak loved Esau because he had a taste for wild game. Ki tzayid befiv. So the Hebrew word tzayid means to trap. So because game was in his mouth, he had a taste for wild game. And Rivka loved Jacob. How do we understand Yitzchak loving his son? Because, how do they say, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, right? Is this what we want to say about Isaac vis-a-vis his son? So Rashi interprets it a little differently. While staying true to the text, he says that Yitzchak loved Esau because entrapment was in his mouth. Entrapment was in Esau's mouth. Meaning not that Yaakov had a taste for for food procured through trapping, but that Esau used his mouth to entrap his father. And that he asked questions like, Father, how do we take tithes from salt and straw? Which of course don't require any tithing, but But he asked these questions as though to show that he's very religious. Whereas Yaakov, on the other hand, of course, well, he grows up in the house of Isaac. He's trained and raised in that tradition. And by the way, and Jacob, on the other hand, is a simple man who stays among the tents. Well, yeah, let's see what the word tam, verse 27, Isaac, look at, again, the same theme. The children grew up, and Esau was a man who knew how to trap, a man of the outdoors, and Yaakov was a quiet man dwelling in tents.
Could it also be that Isaac loved Esau because of the fact that Esau tried to please him and cater to him by bringing him these goodies?
Right. It's possible that Isaac loves Esau because of the relationship they have. It's also possible that Esau is bringing Isaac these goodies as a way of expressing appreciation. It's expressing appreciation for his relationship with his father.
And he was the first one.
He's the firstborn. Yes.
Not only that, I think at that time, Esau was bringing food home, and either you are a shepherd or you are a man of the earth, but he could bring the food home. Yaakov was sitting in the room and just reading his book. It could have been like an earth, quote unquote, like very simple,
right?
And not a man of the city, not cosmopolitan, not the man of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yaakov was sitting there with a book.
Right.
And he's not producing anything to eat.
Right. There is
because in life we have.
Right. So I want to come to that thought in a moment about the value of being. What do we see? What is the worldview that sees value in being a man of the field versus a man of tents, and what is the worldview that sees value in being a man of tents versus a man of the fields? And Yitzchak and Rivka both have this different worldview, right? So that's another. So the first approach is to say, so let's go this in steps. One approach is that how is it that Yitzchak didn't see the guile of Esau is because the trickery of Esau is that the tzeidah, the entrapment, is because Yitzchak grew up in the house of Abraham, and so he only ever knew sincerity and honesty and truthfulness, and he wasn't experienced in dealing with.
Where does it say Esau?
It doesn't. The truth is, if you read the text of the Torah, it's pretty easy to see that it's pretty easy to turn the story totally the opposite and to say that Esau is the good guy and Yaakov is the bad guy. If you read it that way, but our tradition has Esau being, and certainly in the later in the Torah, Esau is not seen as the admirable character. But the truth is, it's more than that. I would say that Yaakov is the person who's dedicated to the covenant, to the project that characterizes the Torah, right? And this, therefore, we see Yaakov as the insider to Torah and Esau as the outsider to Torah, right? So why is it that? So let's ask the question then: was Esau more worthy of than Yaakov of being the keeper of the covenant, of being the one who would carry the project forward,
Mhm.
right? We wouldn't say that.
Well,
Where do you know? So we don't necessarily know that he's a murderer from the text. Yeah, right. We don't know that from the text that he's a murderer. We do.
Potential murder.
Where do we know that from the text either?
He said that he was saying when the days when my
Oh.
father's morning alone. A moment of anger. He said it. Doesn't mean that he did it. The fact that he would say that about he didn't do it because he didn't have a chance. He was sent away. The fact that you could say a thing like that about your brother doesn't speak well of your character. No matter how many.
Okay, so we do see that. Another theme. So this is just want to take a break for a second here while I put that out there. Okay. What else? So we have to accept that that our teaching, our rabbinic teaching, our tradition around this story is what it is. That that Esav is the bad guy and Yaakov is the good guy. But of course, we want to take a little bit more of a nuanced view of the whole thing. So when we talk about Yaakov and Esav, so the first idea is that Yitzchak rather simply doesn't understand the dangers of being like Esav, and he, is really tricked because he doesn't know better. Another way of thinking about it is that he actually sees it as his sacred obligation to care for his son because he knows that Esav is at risk. On the other hand, Rivka, who grew up among trickery, among less than right Lavan and Besuel, would know entrapment when she saw it. All right, so this is the classic understanding of this idea. Of course, you add on to that a layer of who should we learn a lesson from, right? Should we learn a lesson from Yitzchak or from Rivka? What's right? Should we love our wayward children? Of course, the answer is yes. But let's look at the difference between them. And are Yitzchak and Rivka really at odds? And I want to step aside for a moment, and I want to look at the story that comes after, which is really the only story in the Torah that describes the relationship between a husband and wife in the terms that they're described here. Meaning, we don't find Abraham and Sarah. It doesn't speak much about their relationship. Yaakov and Rachel, the Torah says that he loved Rachel, but actually they argue a lot in the story. Yitzchak and Rivka never argue, and as a matter of fact, the story, if you look at the which verse is it? Okay, chapter 26, verse 8, page 95. Yes. So we have a very positive characterization of the relationship between Yitzchak and Rivka. We get the sense that these people are people who really enjoy each other's company. and therefore have a great sense of mutuality, a great sense of commonality. So, how do we jive on the one hand, the conflict, the difference of Yitzchak and Rivka as per their children, and on the other hand, the commonality, the mutuality, the friendship, the closeness that the two of them have. So I think the key is in the entrapment of Esav, and in the question that he asked: how do you tithe salt? Meaning, when Esav wants to show that he is good, he shows that he is very religious. And it really, I think, goes to a question of what is a difference of opinion as to what is the best way to find God. And what is the best way to change the world? One view says that the best way to change the world is through building up your inner spirit, by raising your consciousness, by reflection, meditation, by discovering within yourself a sense of perfection, a sense of finding your center, right? And this is, by the way, the meaning of the word tam. So tam could mean simple, but it can also mean wholesome or whole, complete, perfect, right? Perfect. And so it says that there's something perfect about you, and we understand this in modern spirituality, that says that everyone is perfect and beautiful, and the way to find beauty in the world around you is to find it in yourself, and to meditate on that, and to discover that within yourself. The other view of how to find God is through the rigors of religion. And by religion, so the first approach is spirituality. The second approach is religion, which says that there is a right way to do things. Don't be so obsessive about who you are. Be more focused on what you do. And that despite how troubled you might feel about yourself, that's not to focus on. What's to focus on? What is your obligation? What should you be doing? The rigors of halacha, of strict religious observance. Make sure that you pray on time. Make sure that you say each word clearly and carefully. Make sure that your diction and grammar is correct. Make sure that your tzitzis are long enough. Make sure that your kitchen is kosher enough, right? All those things. Be focused. This is the question of, the following the letter of the law, right? And that's really what Esav says. So it seems that Yitzchak loves Esav because he has the ability to tzayid befiv, because he's a hunter. But actually, a hunter goes back to this worldview in which action is the most important thing. He's not a vegetarian, Esav. Yaakov, on the other hand, as we see, Yaakov's signature dish in our Torah reading is lentils. Right? Esav is a hunter. It says that things matter because of what they do. So I can hunt because I need it for food. It doesn't matter what the identity or spirit of the thing is. It matters what it accomplishes. In the same way that a person who focuses on the letter of the law would say, sometimes we do the same thing with halacha. The person wore the wrong clothing to shul, so we tell them to go home and change, without being concerned about how they'll feel, what that will mean to them, how that will affect them in their relationship with their community, with their faith, with God. Because what's most important is the continuity of the Jewish people. What's most important is the bigger picture. What's most important is the process and the goal. And therefore, I don't care how that person feels. What matters is, are the rules kept? Right? In that sense, a person who follows the rules can find equal fulfillment and equal, or maybe even more, accomplishment outside in the field than at home. Whereas, when your focus is spirituality, when your focus is identity, the first place you have to go is home. You're the people with whom you share affinity and bond, because your life is all about identity. Your life is all about the perfection that is in yourself, and so the first place to find that is within yourself, and the easiest way to do that is among people who are close to you, in a safe place. Now, so Yitzchak, who is the following the tradition of Abraham, in which he's trying to change the world, might say that the best, most important quality is not who you are, but what you do. It actually reflects a great belief in the possibility of people, to say that despite what they are, they can do great things. Rivka, on the other hand, has a different view. Rivka, and this partially we can see a hint of Rivka's approach in the very beginning of the story, where she finds herself conflicted. She finds herself having difficulty with the carrying of these children, and she goes to seek out God. So the rabbis say that what happened was that she found her stomach, her womb getting excited whenever she passed a house of pagan worship, and when she passed a house of divine worship, of scholarship, of holiness, she felt the same excitement, and so she feels conflicted, and she says, "Lama ze anochi," who then am I, or wherefore am I? Right, which is a question of what is my identity? Who am I inside? And so the oracle tells her, the prophet of God tells her, there are really two people inside of you.
And two opposites.
Right. And two that are in conflict with each other. And so she understands that there is something inherent about these two children. But you understand that her question is, what does that mean about who I am? And therefore she's always looking at this from a who is he, not what does he do, but who is he? What is his identity? What is his inner self? What is his spirit? So when she sees, she looks at the world through the lens of identity, and therefore her conflict, her challenge is in understanding how it's possible that this same identity can find itself being excited both in profane and impure places as well as in holy and sacred places. And therefore, when she looks at her children afterwards, she identifies this is the holy one and this is the unholy one. And really, as we've discussed many times, these are characterized in Kabbalistic symbolism as the masculine and feminine energy. The feminine energy being the identity-driven, the masculine energy being the hierarchy-driven, the goal-oriented identity, the utility-oriented worldview, whereas the feminine energy is the spiritual, spirit-oriented, identity-oriented, essence, focused on the essence of the thing. So and again, spirituality and religion. Spirituality is the masculine energy and religion is the feminine, the other way around. Spirituality is the feminine and religion is the masculine. And so we see this expressing itself. And of course, while Yitzchak loves Rivka, as men and women are supposed to each other, and Rivka loves Yitzchak, and we see this commonality between them, nonetheless, each one approaches the world through their own worldview, and each one brings to their relationship their own method, their own worldview. So, and this,
Do you, sages have any interpretation of this word sporting?
yeah,
Well, what kind of?
it refers to the behavior that is reserved for only a man and wife, husband and wife.
So that was proof positive.
That they were husband and wife. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out about Yitzchak and Esav's relationship. Yitzchak, all his life, he was a loner. You could see when he came after that Kedar, it seems that somehow he doesn't say, but he and his father separated. And again, there was another section that it said he was going lasuch basadeh. He was a loner to me. And he was, and somehow Esau was his opposite. It attracted him.
Yeah.
He's like a father who doesn't do sports, and his son is great in that.
Yeah.
He takes pleasure in that. To see that he is building up his muscles. He's opposite, but opposite attracts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that.
And Rivka, no matter what, she grew up in a home, but they were all conniving and trickery. Maybe she saw that in her son.
You could also say that she has that personality herself.
She has it herself because
she did it, right?
She tricked her husband.
Yeah.
After all, they were a husband and wife very close together, and she still worked so hard, and she was ready to take the curse and the punishment. She uses
the methods.
Yes, of her brother and her father.
Yeah.
And now she passed it on to, I think.
So you could say that she's attracted to her opposite as well.
Yes. And I think Yaakov learned from her also to be trickery. By tricking his brother.
When he listened to her.
With the food.
Why did we need this? I don't see why Esau wasn't born second. Why do we need this whole thing?
So this is. Thank you for bringing me to the end. That's because this is here we come to the essence. What is the right way, right? Which is correct? Is the man right or is the woman right? Is the masculine or the feminine right? So when you have struggle between them, as often there is, and there's a tension between the masculine and feminine energy, because you can't have them. They're each going to be. Each one is. Everything is ultimately struggling for its own survival. That's the way. That's physics, right? So what is the answer? So the answer is. Should I say the answer at the beginning? I'll say it now. Look at the story of the oracle. The older shall serve the younger. So the answer is, so Rivka wants to say, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know who I am. And so the answer is, you have both of these in you. What then? What? So I still don't know what to do about that. The answer is that as long as there is an energy that may be more powerful. V'rav. One person, one nation will be stronger than the other. Right? Throughout history, Esav has been stronger than Yaakov. Right? Throughout history, Esav being the progenitor of the Western world, and Yaakov being the progenitor of the Jewish people. Right? Let's just say, the dominant energy in the world has been masculine and has been Western for the last when contrasted with spirituality and with the Jewish people. That there has been a dominance of the Esav worldview. However, right, so that's in terms of power. But the correct and in ourselves, our inner life, our masculine energy is more dominant than our feminine energy, in the sense that we are more effective. We tend more to naturally to operate more effectively in the world of the outer world, the hierarchical, the utility, right? We naturally, at least I don't know, I should say we as a whole, but I'm just saying there is a greater dominance in the language of the empirical and the tangible than which is essentially what can this be used for, right? This is something that speaks much louder than the language of identity and of spirit. However, the goal is that Rav Yavod Sa'ir, that we should have both of them, but that one should serve the other. So which should serve the other? Our utility has to serve our meaning. Our means always have to be serving our end. Our weekday always has to be serving our Shabbat. Our rules should always be consistent with our spiritual values. We should not only that they should be consistent with each other, but that it should be serving our spiritual values. Which, by the way, Rivka does. I mean, if you put it in that context now, Rivka using the trickery to get the blessings for Yaakov is really using the Esav, using the outer utilitarian type of focus in order to achieve a spiritual aim. It's also, by the way, but you see that consistent on the other side also. It's a good question. It's a good question. But you see it also, on the other hand, with Yitzchak does the same thing, where he gets Esav to bring him food in order to bond with his son. He says, go do what you do so that you and I can have some special time together. So he's doing that as well. It's interesting. So this I want to point to the well. The well says that Yitzchak is identity driven, is inherently identity driven as a person. Because the digging of the well, the earth is Mother Earth. The idea is that you're going, as we spoke last week, a special place. The idea of digging a well is digging deep down until you find the benefit, the goodness that is in this place, right? So it's not something that you could do anywhere. It has to be here. And when you first look at it, you don't see it. And so what Yitzchak is really doing with the well is he's digging deep to try and find the inner goodness. Right? And he's doing the same thing with Esav. He's recognizing the value of Esav in order to find the inner goodness within him. It's just that they each approach it from a different way. Yitzchak goes from the Esav to the Yaakov. He goes from the discipline to the identity, from the religion to the spirit. Whereas Rivka goes the other way. She goes from the spirit. Meaning, the question is, how do you understand V'rav Yavod Tza'ir? How do you understand that the older will serve the younger? Does that mean that you should place emphasis on the older because he will serve the younger? Or in order to guide him to serve the younger? Or do you build up the younger so that the older will recognize who he is, what his value is? So do we, in our life, do we build up our religion so that we can make space for our spirit? Or do we spend time with our spirit so that we can find value in religion? So I don't know, it seems that, I don't know the answer to that question, really.
It probably needs the balance between them two.
Right. Right.
To continue to
So maybe that's the answer. Rivka mitzachek es Rivka ishto. Yitzchak mitzachek es Rivka ishto. That they should. We have. V'hinei Yitzchak mitzachek et Rivka ishto. That we have to have friendship with people who are different than us, because that's how we have the balance. We have to have. We have to value. Yeah. Yeah, but there is this beautiful sense of commonality between them, despite their vast difference, and that's the answer. That's how we got to where we are. That's how we are here, because of that ability to cooperate together. It's, we have to recognize that that the thing that we most need is also the thing that can be the most confounding and confusing to us. And the ability to appreciate that and love that is a key to dealing with the world. Is to really learn to I don't know if there's anyone to say it, to appreciate it.
Because if not, you could get influenced by the outside. Balance again.
You have to be secure in yourself, yeah.
When you deal with people who are dissimilar, if you don't go to their way, instead of influencing them.
Yeah, I guess that's the model of Yitzchak and Rivka being together. There's a sense of togetherness, right, and that's referred to there. and so it's really, in order, it's not, there is no, Yitzchak and Rivka don't dominate each other. They dance. I think it, in a way, as people sometimes look down on Rivka for tricking Yitzchak.
They look down on there's a lot of trickery there.
Yeah.
They're good for tricking.
Yeah. But I want to say, but when you talk about it from a relationship point of view, right? You say Rivka tricked Yitzchak. Why didn't they talk it through? Come to an agreement. So from one hand, it can be kind of conniving and going behind his back. But on the other hand, you could say that Rivka respects Yitzchak, doesn't want to change him. So she chooses not to argue with him.
But he'll find out.
He will. Yeah, he will. He will. But she's not trying to get him to come around to see things her way.
He's in awe. He's a little afraid of him.
You could say that. No, so many people say that. I'm saying different. I'm saying that she respects him, not to say that she's afraid of him and awe of him, but that she's not trying. She's meaning not that she's afraid to challenge him. Is that she doesn't see there being any value in him agreeing with her. Like, why does he have to agree with me? I don't need him to agree with me. He's perfect. His worldview is important. His worldview is valuable. And I don't want to undo that. I don't want him to think differently. So I'm not going to argue with him. I'm not going to try and change his mind. I'm not going to try and, I accept him for who he is. He's just wrong. In this moment, he's wrong. But that's not to say that he's wrong. It's not to say that there's something wrong about him. It's wrong about what he's doing. And here we go back to this idea that Yitzchak is actually more like Yaakov. And Rivka is really more like Esau. Right? And Yitzchak is attracted to his opposite. And Rivka is attracted to her opposite. Yitzchak is attracted to Esau, and Rivka is attracted to Yaakov, just like Yitzchak is attracted to Rivka, and Rivka is attracted to Yitzchak. Right? It's the same dynamic. But the point is that Rivka is saying, no, you're good how you are, but we just have to correct what you do. I think that there's also a place for that, for understanding that when we debate or when we encounter difference, not necessarily is it right. Not necessarily is it right to try and change that person's mind. Meaning, why? Not necessarily. It's possible that person could be right, and you can be right. Yeah, it's possible. Famous story.
Wait a minute. The parents, they have to be on the same page in order to deal with the kids. From my experience, and not always, but it's a good idea. But I must confess that I have done things that probably Rivka did because I had to. Because I felt that it has to be done. I couldn't change my husband's mind, and I respected him. And my in-laws lived in the house, and they had those ideas that he has. And I used my sixth sense, and I felt that was the right way to do it. And I used not the trickery, but it would fall into that. Now, looking back, it's hard to say, but I'm glad I did it because it put my children on the derech. I used it different. It's a story. I could write a book about it, but it had to be done. Do I feel guilty? No. Did I do right in halachically? I don't want to ask. I'd rather not ask. But it puts you in a bind. But the end result was excellent. And he didn't know about it. It's not right to do that. Well, I wouldn't like him to do that to me.
Right.
But I did it.
So I would say that sometimes getting tricked is almost a like a redemption in a way. It's like I don't want to change my mind, but I'm glad with the result. It's like it turned out good. I'll give you an example of what I do. My kids sometimes, I have young kids, so they don't want to go to sleep.
Mhm.
So I'll tell them this one I learned from a woman in the community. She gave me this eitzah. It works every time. She said, I would say to them, you know what? If you lie down in bed, and if you're still not tired in 10 minutes, then you can come down. You can come out, right? Or sometimes I'll tell, if it's the older kid, I'll say, look, do me a favor. This one has to go to sleep. Stay in bed until they fall asleep. After they fall asleep, you can come out. The thing is, the kid is happy to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Just that I gave them a way out of themselves. Right? Yeah. He's stuck in his fear of missing out. He doesn't want it, right? But at the same time, I preserved him and his sense of excitement for life. I'm going to tell him there's nothing out there. It's all stupid. I don't want him to think that. So I preserved his sense of excitement for life while allowing him to get what he really needs, which is to sleep. So in a way, that's how I look at the battle between Yitzchak and Rivka. Is that she saves him from himself while preserving his self. Okay, Professor.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good day.